Okay, we are at the top of the hour. Welcome everyone to the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Quarterly Connections. With the support of my colleagues through the Cooperative and the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism at Utah State University, I'm excited to introduce three outstanding speakers today on the topic of outdoor lighting with a special focus on advancements in technology, planning, and design. Today represents part one on this subject. In June, we will reconvene for part two when we focus on the policies and implementations of outdoor lighting. The goal of this educational series is to build a community, to foster connections, and broaden a collective understanding of matters related to the dark night sky and its management. We hope with this forum, we can all learn, support from one another, and ultimately be more effective in our unique roles and mission. My name is Lisa Stoner, and I am the coordinator for the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative. John Barentine, also a member of the cooperative, is my host today, who will be facilitating our questions and answers following the presentations. Some quick logistics. We record all quarterly connections and post the links on our website. Today we have something new. This meeting is being offered in connection with the Utah chapter of the American Planning Association. So for any live attendees who are interested in receiving continuing education credits, I will drop a code for you in the chat at the end of this meeting, and you can submit to APA Utah later. For all of our guests today, it would be great to know who is with us. If you would like to drop your name and where you are from in the chat, that would be great. And it is also helpful if your name and your affiliation are showing in your Zoom profile. And for questions that come up during the presentation, please put those in the chat as we go. John will be moderating the questions throughout, and we will do our best to get to those after the presentations. On to the show. We have an outstanding lineup of presenters today. First, we'll be hearing from Nancy Clanton. Nancy is the founder and CEO of Clanton and Associates. She is a professional engineer who specializes in sustainable outdoor lighting design. She is a fellow of numerous organizations, including the Illuminating Engineering Society, the International Association of Lighting Designers, and the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED program. She also serves as co-chair for the Dark Sky International's Technical Committee, and she is joining us from Colorado. Next is Ashley Pipkin. Ashley is an outdoor recreation planner for the National Park Service, and for many years has working with the National Sounds and Night Skies Division. Many of you know her in prior role as the coordinator of the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, a group she started and led from 2019 to 2023. She joins us today from Boulder City, Nevada. And finally, Rick Uting is an outdoor lighting specialist and design engineer who also works for Clanton and Associates. He's based in Michigan. Rick is an independent consultant for Dark Sky International. He also serves as vice chair in the Illuminating Engineering Society's Outdoor Nighttime Environment Committee. You will find more information about our presenters if you check out their bios that's provided on our website. Finally, the moment we've been waiting for. We're going to start our presentations. Thank you to our speakers for this opportunity to hear from you. We will open the conversation first with Nancy. Nancy, please go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you. Wow, I feel very, very honored to be part of this and putting it all together. I'm going to be discussing kind of night and day and what we know and how light really affects our environment. Because so many times this is forgotten. They go into, oh, well, we just need light for people and safety and all that. But I'd like to dig into, especially for those of you who are here, who are landscape architects, to go, what are we doing with our light at night? How can we do everything and have a win-win situation? What we do know is that life needs daylight. Absolutely. And the amount of daylight is going to vary, of course, where you are in this world. Next. But boy, does life need healthy darkness. And if you look at it, notice the color of the sun as it's setting. Remember that. Keep that in your mind as we go into different types of lighting. Next. I made these up a few years ago when I was working at the University of Minnesota on how light affects mostly the plants. And we came up with the 3 Ps, the plants, pollinators, and people. And I'm going to delve into each of these briefly just to show you on the differences that each of us have. Next. We're going to start with plants. And this just blew me away. And delving into all of the research that goes into it. And Ian Ashdown, bless his soul, he's no longer with us, helped me. He gave me 2 full pages of papers to read about this. And I read every single one. And what surprised me is the effect of light on plants. Look at the tree on the right, which is by the street light, and how the leaves hang on for at least a couple more weeks because of the light from the street light, which really can affect the tree. It can, like if a storm came up or something, it could tip the tree over. Now, so this is just kind of getting my excitement about this to learn more. Next. It was actually the Virginia Tech Research Institute that delved into for the Department of Illinois on the effect of roadway lighting on soybean crops. And Dr. Gibbons actually took all the data and related it back to what line designers could use as far as the amount of light and all that. All my yellow arrows there are pointing to a roadway light. And if you notice, it's directly related to green spots of the soybeans. Next. And here is their data. And if you look at the chart on the right, you notice that the higher the lighting level you go, the less soybean production we have. And it can go down, to 40% or even 30% in some situations. Wow. For states, for farmers, for everything that is so concerned about production and agriculture, this is huge. We keep thinking that light pollution, oh, we can't see the stars, but look at the effects of what we've got on plants, and the data is there. And I'd be happy to give you all of Ian's resources and papers to read on this if you're interested. Next slide. Now let's go to the pollinators. And this, again, really affected me to look at how the moths get trapped in the light and they're wasting all this valuable time. They're not out pollinating and looking for mates. They're just kind of going around and around and around all the different lights. Next slide. This is actually some real sad data. If you look at in 1950, one trap, one night, they caught over 50,000 moths. Let's go to 2000, the year 2000. 19 traps over the entire summer, and they only caught 6,200 moths. That's like below 5% of the moths. And these pollinators are so important for the nighttime. Moths, there's about 20 times the amount of moths versus bees to pollinate our plants. And of course, what they're attracted to is white. And so our lights, our LEDs, everything, it's white, and they get trapped, and then the bats come and eat them. So we've got a real problem. Next slide. And then to the people, oh, we need that warmth of light. Looking at how our eyes work, and if you get into the mechanism of our eyes and our retina, we need on the daylight, the blue light that comes down on the bottom part of our retina. And that's what really adjusts our serotonin. But at night, we need melatonin production. And the light needs to come from the bottom and hit the top part of our retina. Dr. Simpson with Mayo Clinic confirmed all that with me. And I went, wow, we didn't know that we grew up with this firelight, with this warmth coming below, or remember the sunset dipping? It's that kind of light that needs to be done. Next slide. So here's my quiz for you all. What do the 3 P's have in common? Next slide. Think about that. Let's get rid of the blue light. They all are affected by blue light, and that's a big problem. What my dream is, I hope EPA actually looks at light pollution as real pollution. And I think with all of your help, maybe the more pressure we can put on, that it's affecting our plants, it's affecting the birds, it's affecting everything at night. And it's huge, and what we've got this problem. And of course, the wildlife, I think you're very, very tuned into, the turtle hatching, all of that, and how it affects it. Travis Loncourt, who's with UCLA, actually sent me another page of papers to look at. And he has mapped over 600 species and what they have. So here's another question. What color of light do animals, big, huge animals, really don't see? Well, the answer is like an orange or a red. That's why hunters can go out in red, because they're completely dark. And so this is what we've got. And they're usually biconal, and we are triconal. Next slide. One of the great things that have happened is that the Illuminating Engineering Society and now it's called Dark Sky International, it used to be IDA, International Dark Sky, but everyone get used to Dark Sky International. They put together collectively, which is amazing, the environmentalists along with the lighting engineers who are coming up with the criteria. They put together all of these 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. The great news is all of the IES criteria now has to follow these 5 principles. And I'm going to go through each one with an example of what it means. Next. First one, light better be useful. You shouldn't just be spraying light somewhere that's not useful. Notice the picture on the left where we've got stairs. You can see the stairs and where they are. It's kind of like wayfinding lighting. And on the slide on the right, you light maybe on a path where you've got conflict zones. A bicyclist is going to conflict with a pedestrian. That's what you light. And you don't have to spray light everywhere else. Next slide. And it should only be directed only where needed. It should be targeted. The slide on the left is a project we did that's going over a creek where Fish and Wildlife said, no, absolutely no light can go into the water. So we integrated light, and look at its beautiful wayfinding lighting across this bridge. In fact, I've been working with the low visibility community, and they have said, the closer you are to where the railing is, and about 12 inches from the railing, that's what they need. They don't necessarily need down the middle because they're not going to be there. And so we're just looking at how can we light and not intrude. The picture on the right shows an underpass, and notice how all the light is aimed inwards and not to the river. The only light that's reflected in the river is coming from lighting way downstream. Next slide. But please, when you're doing your designs, calculate the light levels and model 3D with the landscape. So we're not getting light into the landscape. We've got everything directed where it's needed, and we're providing good wayfinding lighting. Next slide. Light should be no brighter than necessary. Ooh, this is amazing because everyone is, oh, we need more light. Another dream I have is that right now our lighting levels are a linear basis. But in foot candles, if you eat triple, you almost have to go 10 times the lighting level before anyone notices a difference. Think of our ears. Our hearing is in decibels, and that's logarithmic. My dream is that we go to logarithmic scale with lighting. And we can see, we've done this at Grand Canyon National Park. We lit a lot of the visitor center at 2 moonlights and brought the public through, and they had no problem seeing it all. Next slide. And if no one's in the area, let's turn it off. Let's dim it down. Let's do everything. I do understand the beauty of landscape lighting. A good friend of mine, Carol Franklin, I once asked her, I said, Carol, what do you think of landscape lighting? And she said, oh, Nancy, everyone loves to be in the spotlight, but not while we sleep. And I've never have forgotten that. And so please use controls that will not hurt the plants or the pollinators and start turning things off. Next slide. And then the final principle is use warmer color light where possible, just like that beautiful sun setting or the firelight, and have it low. We can see just fine. Next slide. So here are kind of my simple rules to follow. I didn't talk about what a bug is, but it's basically how we rate luminaires, backlight, uplight, and glare. Use as low of a rating as you can do. Do warm light, which is like 1600 Kelvin to at the top, 3000 Kelvin. And that's very easy. All luminaires are going to have that system of color temperature related to them. And then controls. My dream is smartphones will do the controls, just-in-time lighting, that we know if someone's out there, okay, the lights could slowly dim up or not. But I think that that is really the future, and I'm hoping that that's exactly what happens. Next slide. Now it's over to Ashley. Thank you.
So hi, everyone. We got a little introduction in the beginning, but I'm going to just do a brief one. I work for the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. My name is Ashley Pipkin. I have worked for the National Park Service's Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division for about 10 years now. And when I started my job, one of the best parts of it, of course, is the field work, being able to collect information on night sky quality in some of the most spectacular places in the country, our national parks. Pretty quickly, you realize that if national parks or any dark or bright places are going to try to make improvements, they will need to work with communities that use and install artificial light. And from my point of view, partnerships were the way to address this challenge. As Lisa said, we started the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative in 2019. I helped coordinate that for the first 5 years. And being a part of that group was amazing. I was finding myself really constantly inspired by all the amazing work other people were doing. I think collaboration really became easier when we heard from other people's projects, other work that's going on in this. I'll show in this part of the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, but also in the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative, just hearing all of the amazing work. And I could talk at length about these projects, many of the projects in the cooperative, but I will choose to focus on one of them today. And that one project that I'm going to talk about is based out of Boulder City, Nevada. Boulder City, Nevada, this is a satellite image of Boulder City in the red box, and it is at the edge of one of the brightest parts in the whole cooperative in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I really do want to emphasize that working with places that use light is an incredibly important way to improve night skies. Many people also think that because Boulder City is so close to Las Vegas, that our sky is already ruined. But I want you to notice that in the satellite image, while the western sky, if you cut through Boulder City, while the western sky is really impacted by Las Vegas, what we have in the eastern sky is nearly pristine. It's one of the last places you can go to grab a meal or stay in a hotel before you go to the night skies in Aviquame National Monument or Lake Mead National Recreation Area, or on your way to Grand Canyon National Park over here. And I wanted to celebrate that and have Boulder City really be a part of the solution and not, just a part of the problem. So a team from Boulder City Chamber of Commerce and Boulder City staff supported an application for us for me to be an American Geophysical Union AGU fellow to make Boulder City more night sky friendly. Our community science, Brian Bollinger, is leading the effort on the lighting management plan, while the community leads work on implementation of that plan through retrofits to night sky friendly lighting. With scientists and community support, we moved to gain an even broader coalition of support. And you can do this in a lot of different ways, but one way I engaged in this process was by presenting to City Council. And I tried to meet City Council where they were to build trust and address what they were concerned with. This is a slide directly from my City Council presentation. There are so many reasons to care about the night sky. But instead of focusing on, what my interests are as a National Park Service employee, somebody who cares about natural nocturnal environments a great deal, I did try to focus on how I could appeal to the community and how listen to them about what they think that they could do to make lighting better in their community and what would appeal in a positive light. So what would make improvements, and also listen to their concerns about what they thought night sky friendly lighting could do. There were a lot of concerns in the community that if we installed night sky friendly lighting, it could potentially make it too dark to see. And so to address that problem head on, one of the things we did in our community was a dimming experiment. For a little bit of background, the community had a lot of these warm, high pressure sodium lights. As those lights were slowly dying out, they would replace them with these 4000 K LEDs. This is a light from the community. They're incredibly bright, and these lights required a person to go there in a bucket truck, go to the top of the light, and dim it if they were going to dim the light. So that is not the easiest way to dim a light, but they were kind enough to do it. They dimmed one of the lights to 25% and another one of the lights to 50%. And I was really shocked to see that while my luminance meter that I took out to measure the light detected the change, the reduction in brightness, my eyes could not tell the difference. Nancy kind of hit on this earlier. The human eye is amazing, and we will still be able to see. And having the community members and folks in public works and city council see that we were using so much light that we could dim it by 50% and not even notice was really a game changer in convincing them that we could use less light in our community. They finally understood that using less light would not actually make it too dark to see. So after gaining support from Boulder City Council and community leaders, I went back to partnerships built in that cooperative setting. And the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation has just been an amazing partner. And they were the lead applicant for Boulder City to the Economic Development Administration. And we applied to retrofit the lights in Boulder City to make them night sky friendly. And yay, we were awarded the grant, which is excellent news. Our next step, though, was to get work planning the project and what we would do in the community. When we got the grant, we wanted to be sure to share this information with the community not just the city council, but we sent a mailer to every single person in the community describing what dark skies were and asking them to fill out a survey. And from that survey, we found that we had broad support to move ahead. So what did moving ahead look like for Boulder City? Well, first we had to establish goals, and one of our major goals for the project was to reduce sky glow. I showed you in the beginning of the presentation that I measured sky glow for the national park for many, many years, and this is an image that we took of the Boulder City, and you can see there's Las Vegas over here, and this little square over here is Boulder City. So we will take many, many measurements. This is a sky glow measure that we've taken, and we will continue to monitor sky glow in this section. Another one of the goals of the project was to reduce light trespass in the community. And one of the things that we did whenever we were working with folks selling us lights is we asked them to provide photometric plans so that we could evaluate our light. And there's many different programs. A popular one is AGI 32, but there are many different kinds of programs that you can use to get these photometric measurements to make sure that when you're choosing a light that you are hitting the mark for the right brightness and the right distribution for that light. The Cobra headlight that we chose for Boulder City looks like this. And Nancy talked a little bit about the bug rating, so backlight, uplight, glare. All of our lights have 0 uplight. It has a 2700 K color temperature, so it's below that 3000. It's between that 3000 and 1600 that Nancy mentioned. All of the lights have dimming capability with remote control dimming. So it's not going to require a specialist in a bucket truck to get up there to change the brightness. And there is also improved distribution depending on if that light was a double pole mounted light, if it's in a single pole mounted light in a neighborhood or in an intersection. We are still picking our post stop light out. We haven't finalized this decision yet. But I'll share some of our experience in Boulder City, which is in this process, we have shopped around, we have installed so many different lights, and we have used our 5 principles to guide us throughout this process. And in addition to the considerations about brightness, uplight, color, distribution that we all have to think about as night sky advocates, there are other things to consider that I'm learning so much about too from the community perspective. You know, what the poles can handle. We're just installing lights on poles that we already have. So we have to pick out lights that are appropriate for our poles. We have to pick out lights that are affordable and that feel like the aesthetic of the community. We need to consider if we choose one light or the other, would we need a house side shield? And is that an extra cost? And what the controls are for each available light as well. So there are so many things to consider when picking the appropriate light for your community. And I think this is a big one and a big lesson learned for me throughout this process. I'm gonna, share, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing with outdoor lighting and changing technology. This is an image here of Boulder City before the grant, before night sky friendly lighting was even brought to city council. And you can see, in the community, there's sort of a hodgepodge of lighting. If you're not familiar with lighting, this is kind of the 4000 K LED along this road. These are the older high pressure sodium lights. And, there's a hodgepodge, high pressure sodium and LED over here. And I would just say that this transition is very typical in communities across the country. LED lighting is gonna change how we light our communities. And this new technology is more energy efficient. And the cost per lumen, how bright it is, that the cost to light is getting less and less expensive. And I believe it's one of the biggest concerns facing the night sky is the risk of using more light because it costs less. And I see this kind of over and over again in communities. Cheaper light means that more light is being used, but it does not have to be. It doesn't have to be that way. If a community wants to see improvements in the night sky, we as a community of practitioners need to make sure that we are giving the appropriate guidance on how to use this new technology so that this LED lighting technology is improving night skies instead of adding more light to the environment overall. So Nancy kind of went through what the 5 principles are. I just have a little dot beside each one based on how hard or easy I think it was in Boulder City for us to implement. And like I said, choosing the appropriate lighting level, I think is one of the hardest things. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges for non-experts. I think in the sales world, could be a big incentive to upsell lights because they're bigger and brighter and more expensive. And that's why we need to measure. And I think communities really struggle with this one. And I think it's one of the most important reasons to hire a lighting designer and engineer to help you with your project. If, funding allows for that, I think that is one of the biggest things they can help with. Light being targeted in Boulder City, we used that bug rating. We made sure we had an uplight of 0 and played around with the brightness to get lower backlight and lower glare. We looked at photometric measurements to make sure we were choosing the right distribution. That takes some expertise, but I think it's a little bit easier than the low light levels. For this useful one, I put this one kind of in the middle of the road. You would think that would be the most easiest one, but I think when working with communities, I think if you can convince them to not put a lighting pole up, that's your best bet in reducing non-useful light. But I think when infrastructure is placed in a community, I think it's just a part of our culture sometimes that we have a hard time removing it once it's there. I'd be interested to hear if others have had success in that realm. Controlled, this is becoming easier and easier with new technology, and I think is one of the biggest benefits of LED lighting is that it's much easier to control. In Boulder City, we have, these remote control dimmers on our lights. Our post top light is maybe it's going to be a little bit maybe more cost prohibitive to have a lot of controls on that light. So that might not be something we choose for the post top, but it's getting more and more affordable to control lighting. And I think choosing a color is the easiest. As Nancy said, you got to choose a warm color and you can kind of choose that across the board for your community. So this is my last slide with, just a few lessons learned here. I think I'll go through some of the things I think really helped us and some of the things that if anybody else is trying to do a project like this that I hope I can help with. But I think one of the most important lessons that I learned is to include designers in the cost. We did not choose to do that initially, to include lighting designers and lighting engineers in the cost, and I really regret that. I wish we would have done it. I think when you work with those lighting engineers, lighting designers, that it's really important for them to have clear goals. And we do have some clear goals in this project. For us, we wanted to reduce light trespass and sky glow. And if you want to make sure you are meeting those goals, you cannot measure too much. I didn't get into measurement too much in this discussion today, just didn't have time to do it, but we have been measuring this and will continue to measure our results throughout the life of this project. And I understand that not everyone here has the experience to measure, but if you don't have that experience, I think there's lots of people that are interested in making those measurements, so please reach out. You have to show the community that night sky friendly lighting is not scary, and that dimming experiment really helped me with that. And I made sure to always share information that appealed to my audience, not only what appealed to me. Building relationships takes time to do, and it takes more time to maintain them, but it's really important for getting community support and working, to provide that guidance far into the future. So that is the end of my presentation. I will hand it over to Rick. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's great to be here speaking with you today. And I've been working in the outdoor space now for just over 20 years, and I learned so much from people like Nancy and Ashley that it keeps every day very exciting. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about today, my presentation is called The Climb, and the reason it's called The Climb is because I'm going to present to you some real world statistics and facts that are facing us as headwinds. So we actually have kind of 3 mountains to climb. And so I will get to a point in the presentation where I talk about some new tools in our toolbox and what we can all do to improve our chances of making it to the top of the mountain. So this first slide is just projecting reality. I'm not trying to give my age away, but I can tell you that when I was born, the world population was 3.5 billion people. And as of today, the world population is at 8 billion. So just in my lifetime alone, the world population has more than doubled. And how does that relate to lighting? Well, if you think about, the fact that artificial light is for human uses and we have more than twice as many people, is it not inherently intuitive to think we have twice as much light as we perhaps did in 1966? Well, that's a thought, and the reality is population will continue to climb for about another 40 years before it starts to taper off. And so that is before us. That's reality before us, is that population is growing. It's going to continue to grow, and people are going to ask for and expect more lighting. And thus, urbanization continues to happen worldwide. Look, in the United States, we have about 85% of us live in urban environments. And in Japan and India, it's a global trend that there's a lower population now in darker rural environments. So most of us cannot see the Milky Way where we live. And so the reality is we're talking to people, we're talking to 85% of the population who really have no idea what a dark environment looks like, or the fact that they could potentially actually see in that type of environment. So urbanization is really this process of, sure, you can remodel, but there's vacant land. There's vacant, dark land that is getting developed. And when things get developed, lights get added. And so the reality is that there's a population shift. There's actually competition between cities for population. Some people move to the south for warmer climates. Other people try and, move to, for jobs. But there's this population that moves. And the reality is, in the competition for that population, is you have to provide amenity. Well, one thing that cities are realizing is that people are enjoying to get outdoors. This is a pre-COVID thing. This has been going on now for 25, 30 years, but COVID did sort of accelerate it a little bit. People love to get outdoors, connect with nature, and they're mobile. We're mobile. So because of that, in the development world, the 100% corner is born. Well, what is the 100% corner? In any city, USA, there's an intersection where the rentable space is at the highest value and 100% filled. And that's the 100% corner. And that is controlled by developers and landlords and people who make money off of that business model. So if you think about it, here's this population influx. You're a developer, people love to get outside. There is a tremendous financial advantage to developing beautiful outdoor space amenity where people will want to be, because then the commercial environment will rent any available space in that environment to be part of it. So an active, vibrant, 100% corner will typically be worth 20-25% more money. So if you live around Central Park in New York City or the High Line, fabulous outdoor spaces with amenity, your property values will be worth more. And so this is sort of the second mountain that we need to climb. One is population's growing, urbanization is happening, and now secondly, I just told you there's a financial advantage to actually developing these spaces, you know, for populations that are moving. The third mountain that we're facing is that light sources are now coming from everywhere. If you look at this photo, you help me out, but let's start counting them. I see light poles, very traditional light source. I see lighting coming from architecture. I see lighting within signs. I see lighting within handrails. I see lighting within stairs. And I'm probably missing a couple, but the point is LEDs have made it very easy to incorporate lighting in the outdoor space. You can go to the Home Depot or Amazon, and people do it every day. They buy outdoor lights and they put them up. It's very easy. They're energy efficient. It's not a huge barrier to do this. So this is the third mountain that we're up against. So this is that point where we call to arms, right? Can we light the future responsibly? How are we going to do this? What tools do we have in our toolbox? So the first one that I'm excited about, I do a lot of work for the Illuminating Engineering Society, and the Outdoor Nighttime Environment Committee now is, at last count, I think it's up to about 80 members. And one of the things we're hoping to have wrapped up by December of this year is that we're going to be combining and merging 3 outdoor standards into one. And this is significant because one barrier that cities have cited for using lighting standards is cost. And if you bought these 3 individual standards, you would spend $450 to buy these, and you have 3 standards to consider. By merging them into one standard, we reduced the cost by a factor of 3. So now the city only has to spend $150, and they only have to keep their eyes on one document and maintain that one document. So the 3 documents were lighting design for outdoor space, environmental considerations for outdoor lighting, and outdoor applications for people. Okay. So I mean, this is wonderful. This is great news. This is a tool that we're going to be able to leverage. It'll be known as RP43. And like I said, hoping to have this published by December. Now, it's not just combining the 3 standards. I mean, it's also knocking off the rust and fixing a few things up. One of those is lighting zones. Lighting zone definitions do live and exist within the current IES environmental standard. Okay. Well, we've noticed that there were some gaps in lighting zone definitions, making it difficult for people to use, including the National Park Service. It was very difficult in lighting zone 0 to say, no light allowed, but if you're going to use light, here's what you got to do. I mean, that was very confusing and very difficult. So one of the things we're doing with the new lighting zone definitions is we're adding a zone. We're adding a zone that's called the natural dark zone. And this will allow park and protected spaces to have absolutely no artificial light where there should be no artificial light. And it then opens up lighting zone 0 as a place where we can use extremely responsible lighting. Very low light levels, very warm color temperature, very low glare, and all the things that Nancy and Ashley explained. We'll be able to do that in lighting zone 0. And now, if you are in a residential environment, you don't have to be lighting zone 1. You can actually make a residential neighborhood a lighting zone 0 because light is allowed there. And so we're pushing light levels lower inherently by this design. If you look at my 4 red circles, there's 4 pages of narrative that explain lighting zones, but we know it's easier to just go to the chart. So here's the chart. So the chart does include a purpose, why we do lighting zones. It includes instructions on how you do it. It includes an expansive list of land use examples so that communities can evaluate, or lighting designers can evaluate and accept the most appropriate lighting zone for the applications. So this will be included in the new combined RP 43. We're very excited about what this might do. And then Dark Sky International, they are absolutely busy. And I can tell you in the next 4 months, a couple things that they're working on that we will be excited to see. Number one, in terms of the Dark Sky Destination Program, we're happy to see that the Dark Sky Lodging Program was kicked off. That has been, phone's been ringing off the hook with lots of places wanting to take advantage of that. In March, the new and improved Luminaire program will be released. And then in May or June, this is a big one, Dark Sky will be releasing state legislation language for states to consider in their houses or senates, and municipal ordinance template that counties and municipalities can leverage and use for their own communities. And the two, of course, work together. So very excited about that as a tool in the toolbox. And so those are a couple things that are being worked on to counter all of those hills that we have to climb. So with that, we wanted to open the floor up for questions, right, John?
That is correct. And thank you, Rick. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Ashley, for all your presentations. There's a tremendous amount of good material presented today. I learned things, and that's saying something. So we're very glad to have you here and to present this to us. We have a little bit less than 10 minutes to do some Q&A based on what I have been seeing in the chat. We'll throw as many of these questions to the presenters as possible. And for those that we're not able to answer live, I've been noting who is asking which questions, and we will try to get some answers for you afterward, directly from the presenters. So let's move directly to it. For Nancy from Amber Haynes, she asks, is there a case study document or something about lighting their park visitor center to 2 moonlights, so twice the intensity of moonlight, with no complaints? She says that would really be useful for talking to clients who think that more is better.
I will have to pull that together. It is kind of the property of Grand Canyon National Park, so probably getting their information, which I bet Ashley could help me out with. But we did experiments with community questionnaires, and it was amazing. And we kept varying the lighting level and everything. Again, it was not published. It was just a paper. I mean, kind of results that we handed to National Park Service.
Great.
But we have done it in other places, like with ski areas, stuff like that. So 2 moonlights, yeah. I mean, we all could walk in 2 moonlights. Try it yourself. Go out skiing in the, Anyway, I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Nancy. Here's one that would go to Ashley, and it was about the EDA grant process. And this is from Brian Cashin. He asks, how long did it take to develop your grant application for Boulder City? And as a follow-up, how long after submission until it was granted?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I will answer to the best of my ability right now. So we applied for that grant in 2019. I think we applied for it maybe in January of 2020, end of 2019. It was around the holidays. I think we finalized it in January 2020. It took a lot of time. It's hard to say because it's so many people working together, but it was primarily the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation, myself, and Boulder City, putting together that grant package and that material. I'm happy to share the language of that with anybody. Brian, if you like to see the language in there, I would love for someone else to use it because it did take a lot of focused effort. There was the final session was like 7 hours in my office to get it finalized and where it needed to be. So time maybe 15 hours cumulatively or something if you did a direct period. And then so we applied for it in January. We were expecting to hear something in June or July. And I know the exact day that we heard about the grant. It was September 20th of 2020 because I went into labor the next day and had a baby. So I remember the exact timeline of that. So it took about 9 months, and we have about 5 years to spend the money. So we're coming up on those deadlines right now. Hope that answered the question, and I'd be happy to share grant language with anybody on this call.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. There's a question that I think would be great for Rick. This is from Richard Tenney. He asks, are there any public lighting manufacturers addressing this obvious problem or challenge that would fix existing bad lights without outright replacement and that would not break city budgets? Do you have any thoughts on that, Rick?
I do. So I think I'm at liberty to dive into some secret details here. It is the intent of the new dark sky approved luminaire program, and it is the intent to have support of the IES and IALD that luminaires will now have to be cut off to 80 degrees. And the reason that's significant is because it is relatively efficient to add a 10-degree shield to existing lights. If you ask a lighting manufacturer if they have a solution for 80-degree cutoff, most of them will pull out of their back pocket a design-ready shield. The reason we think that that is a big ticket item is because if you add that 10-degree shield, you will bring every light down to less than a G2 rating. So when Nancy was talking about the bug rating and the letter G being glare, we can eliminate false adaptation significantly, and that will make quality of light go up.
Very good. And we've got probably time for one more that we can get completely through. And this is really for anybody, but my guess is that either Nancy or Rick would be most qualified to discuss it. This is a question from Bob Grossman, who asks, has there been any research on a minimum height for street lighting? So this is a good follow-on to that issue of glare. He says, as you know, the higher the mounting height, the more light can be considered trespass because you can't shade the downward light. Is there anything either you can say about that?
Yes, what we're looking at, and it's really exciting, are new luminaires that you can actually change the light distribution, either elongated or not to go in somebody's yard. With LEDs, with solid state lighting, that's our advantage, that we can actually use light waves and do everything. So we could get to a lower mounting height, but have the light very elongated just along the sidewalk, much further than our standard type 3 and type 4 distributions. We need to move away from legacy light source distributions into this huge new world of going distributions that will match the application. So I know I didn't answer it exactly, but just look to luminaire manufacturers that are offering those options.
Rick, do you have anything to say about that? I'm thinking in particular about, as kind of a follow-up question, how in the future something like that might be integrated into either the lighting standards or things like the model policies.
Yep. So the municipal ordinance template will include light trespass levels. Okay. The reason we put it there is because of code enforcement. We know that at a state level, there is no way something like that will be enforced. But at a local level, it can be enforced, and it can really solve neighborhood conflicts between properties. Having said that, elevation change is real. And so we can't quite guarantee that an 80-degree cutoff or positioning the pole 4 times pole height from the property line is going to guarantee no light trespass, because elevation might change. And so for that reason, we're adding lux illuminance level criteria as trespass criteria for cities to consider.
Great, thank you so much. And that is going to wrap up Q&A. I'm going to throw it back up to Lisa to take us out, and we are going to get you all out of here on time today.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, John, for moderating those questions. We have several left. We will work on that to get back to you as a group. So much great information today. I was totally blown away. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with each of you, our distinguished guests, for today's presentation. So thank you so much. And John, thank you for being my colleague and for handling and helping this today. Thank you to our audience and to my colleagues and to the Utah chapter of American Planning Association. We were happy to work with you today. I am about to drop 3 things into the chat, starting with, here we go, the code for the APA Utah Continuing Education Credit. Drop that in right now. And I do want to, as a reminder, our next meeting, we focus on the policies and implementation of night-friendly outdoor lighting. So I'm going to drop in our website link here, as well as if you'd like to follow our email. We have newsletters that come out once a month. And lastly, we'd love to hear your comments and suggestions about the quarterly connections. I'm going to drop that in now. We really want your feedback, suggestions, anything that you feel would be improve this forum, things that might be more impactful for you and your work. I did get a few today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Please fill out our feedback survey. And once again, thanks for everyone here today. We hope to see you again soon. And please do take care.